A bell rings across a silent city. Its echo feels heavy in the morning air. No one smiles when it fades away. Shops open slowly along the narrow streets. Wooden doors creak as they move. The faces behind them remain careful and still. Children walk beside their parents. Their steps are small and quiet. Even their whispers seem controlled. In the center of the city stands a tall palace. Its stone walls shine pale under the gray sky. High windows watch everything below. Behind one of those windows sits a king. He does not look angry. He looks thoughtful. Once the city sounded different. Markets were loud with voices. Laughter moved freely through the streets. It came from bakeries and gardens, from taverns and small family homes. It felt as natural as breathing. But something changed. A royal order was announced one winter morning. Its words were short and clear. Laughter was forbidden. In public, in private. The message spread quickly. Guards read it in every square. Paper copies hung on cold stone walls. At first, many people did not understand. They thought it was a strange joke, but no one dared to test it. Because the king had spoken directly, and his voice carried power. His words were law. Why would a ruler fear laughter? Why silence something so small? Few people knew the answer. The king had not always been silent. As a young prince, he once laughed loudly. His joy once filled palace halls. Old paintings show him smiling, his eyes bright, his posture relaxed. But time changed him. Years of war surrounded his youth. Battles shaped his view of the world. He watched soldiers fall. He saw cities burn. He learned that control meant survival. When he became king, he promised order. No chaos, no weakness. In his mind, laughter sounded careless. It felt like a crack in discipline, like a door left slightly open. He believed joy made people soft. Soft people, he thought, could not protect the kingdom. So he made a choice. The first days after the ban were strange. People caught themselves smiling, then quickly looked around in fear. In the marketplace, a joke stopped mid-sentence. Two friends lowered their eyes. Their mouths returned to silence. In a small schoolroom, a child almost giggled. The teacher placed a gentle finger to her lips. The room became still again. Guards did not need to shout. Their presence was enough. Metal armor reflected cold light. The punishment was never explained clearly. That made it more frightening. Imagination filled the empty space. Some whispered of fines. Others spoke of prison. No one wanted to find out. Even at home, families became careful. Dinner conversations grew short. Smiles faded before they fully formed. Mirrors reflected serious faces. Eyes studied their own expressions. Mouths practiced staying flat. But the strange part was this. The king did not remove music. He did not close the theaters. Plays could continue. Stories could be told. Only laughter was forbidden. Actors learned to adjust their scripts. Funny lines disappeared. Comic characters became quiet. Theaters felt heavy. Audiences watched without sound. Applause remained polite and brief. Street performers packed away colorful props. Bright masks were hidden in boxes. Painted smiles vanished from view. Weddings became serious ceremonies. Guests nodded instead of laughed. Joy felt measured and controlled. In taverns, conversations lowered. Stories ended before reaching humor. Mugs touched without cheerful noise. The city did not collapse. Trade continued. Work went on as usual. But something invisible had changed. The air felt heavier. The streets felt narrower. Travelers noticed the difference immediately. They described the city as quiet. Too quiet. Some visitors asked questions. Lokal zawoida answering. Their eyes moved toward the palace. Inside the palace, the king observed reports. He read about discipline improving. He felt satisfied. Crime numbers slightly decreased. Soldiers stood straighter in formation. Orders were followed quickly. To the king, this proved he was right. Silence meant strength. Control meant safety. Yet at night, something echoed in his memory. A sound from long ago. A burst of laughter from his childhood. He remembered a garden in spring. Sunlight warming stone paths. His younger self laughing freely. He closed the memory quickly. Such softness, he believed, was dangerous. Kings could not afford it. Outside the palace, resistance did not appear openly. No banners were raised. No speeches were made. Instead, something smaller began. A quiet tension, a silent question in every heart. Was laughter truly weakness? Or was it something else? Few people dared to ask aloud. Children felt the change most deeply. They struggled to hold back giggles. Their natural joy had no place to go. In hidden corners of the city, whispers began, not loud enough to hear clearly, but strong enough to grow. One evening, in a narrow alley, a small sound escaped. A quick, surprised laugh. It disappeared as fast as it came. Two young friends froze in fear. Their eyes widened in the dim light. They waited for heavy footsteps. None came. The street remained empty. The silence returned. Their hearts beat fast, but beneath the fear was something else. A strange thrill. For a brief second, the city felt alive again. The sound had been small, but it felt powerful. Word of the moment spread quietly, not through shouts, through careful whispers. Some said the guards did not hear. Others said they chose not to react. No one knew the truth. But a new thought entered the city. If one laugh could survive, maybe others could too. Far above, in his silent chamber, the king looked out over the dark streets. He believed he had removed chaos. He did not yet realize that silence can hold pressure, and pressure over time begins to push back. Winter slowly gave way to spring. Snow melted along the stone streets, but the silence remained. Flowers opened in palace gardens. Their colors were bright and soft. No laughter followed their beauty. In the marketplace, vendors spoke carefully. Prices were discussed in low voices. Even friendly greetings felt measured. The king received daily reports. Each page described order and calm. Each line praised stability. He read them with steady eyes. To him, the city was healing. Silence meant control. But the strange part was this. Silence does not remove feeling. It only hides it. In homes across the city, people adapted. They replaced jokes with quiet smiles. They trained their faces to remain still. Parents warned their children gently. Be careful with your voice, they said. Walls have ears. Schools became even stricter. Teachers avoided playful stories. Lessons turned dry and serious. A young boy once drew a smiling face. The teacher paused when she saw it. She quietly asked him to erase it. The boy did not understand. He stared at the empty space on his paper. Something small inside him dimmed. Travelers stopped visiting as often. They said the city felt heavy, as if joy had been removed from the air. Nearby kingdoms watched with interest. Some rulers admired the king's discipline. Others felt uneasy. Rumors began to travel beyond the borders. A city without laughter, people whispered. The idea sounded unnatural. Inside the palace, advisors gathered. They sat around a long wooden table. Candles flickered softly between them. One advisor cleared his throat carefully. He asked if the ban was still necessary. The room became tense. The king listened without anger. His expression remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. Discipline must be protected, he replied. Small cracks become large breaks. No one argued further. The meeting ended quietly. Chairs scraped against stone floors. Footsteps faded down long corridors. But doubt had entered the room. Even if no one spoke it again, the question remained. Meanwhile, in the lower parts of the city, a group of performers met in secret. They gathered in an old storage cellar. dust-covered wooden crates. A single lantern lit the small space. Faces glowed in warm light. They were actors and storytellers, once famous for comedy, now reduced to silence. One woman held a faded mask. Its painted smile was chipped and worn. She traced it with her fingers. "We cannot live like this forever," she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly. Others nodded slowly. They did not plan rebellion. They did not speak of violence. They spoke of something smaller. They wanted to tell one joke, just once, to hear the sound again. The idea felt dangerous, but also necessary, like breathing after holding air too long. Across town, the young friends from the alley met again. They remembered that brief laugh. It had stayed in their minds. What if it was not heard? One asked. What if they cannot control everything? The thought felt bold. At night, more small sounds appeared. A quick giggle behind a closed door. A soft chuckle beneath a blanket. Each sound was tiny, almost invisible, but they began to multiply. Guards heard rumors of disobedience. They increased patrols at night. Armor echoed against stone. Torches moved through narrow streets. Light touched dark corners. But laughter is quick. It can hide in silence. It can wait behind a still face. It can disappear in a second. Inside the palace, the king slept lightly. Dreams returned to him more often. Old memories refused to fade. He dreamed of a banquet long ago. Music filled the hall. He laughed beside his father. In the dream, his father looked strong, but also warm, not weak at all. The king woke before dawn. His room felt cold. The dream left a quiet ache. He stood at his window. The city below looked peaceful, too peaceful. He told himself the ache was foolish. A ruler must rise above emotion. A ruler must remain firm. But somewhere deep inside, a question began to form. Was silence truly strength? The performers in the cellar prepared quietly. They wrote a short, simple joke. Nothing cruel, nothing political. It was about a baker and burnt bread. A harmless story, one that once filled theaters with joy. They chose a hidden courtyard. Old stone walls blocked the wind. It felt private and safe. A few trusted friends were invited. They arrived in small groups, their faces serious at first. The lanterns were dimmed. Shadows covered the corners. Every ear listened carefully. The storyteller stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly. She began softly. The words moved slowly at first. Listeners remained silent. Fear hovered in the air. Then came the final line. A simple twist about burnt bread. It was harmless. For a second, nothing happened. The courtyard held its breath. Hearts beat loudly. Then someone exhaled sharply. A small laugh escaped. It was light and quick. Another followed. Then another. Soft but real. The sound grew warmer. Not loud, but alive. Eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, the courtyard felt human again. Not controlled, not measured. But what happened next surprised everyone. A shadow moved beyond the wall. A guard had heard something. Boots approached slowly. Metal brushed against stone. The laughter stopped instantly. Silence returned like a curtain falling. Faces froze. Breathing slowed. The gate creaked open. Torchlight entered the courtyard. Eyes turned toward the doorway. The guard stepped inside. He looked at each face carefully, and then he paused. The guard's torch flickered in the dark courtyard. Its light moved slowly across nervous faces. No one dared to breathe loudly. He listened for echoes. He waited for another sound, but only silence answered him. The storyteller lowered her eyes. Her hands tightened around the faded mask. Fear pressed against her chest. The guard stepped forward once. Boots scraped softly on stone. The group remained still. For a brief moment, his face softened, almost as if he understood. Then it returned to discipline. "You should go home," he said quietly. His voice was not harsh, but it carried warning. The group did not wait for more words. They slipped away in small numbers. Lanterns were quickly extinguished. The courtyard emptied. Only shadows remained, and a memory of sound. The guard stood alone for a moment. He stared at the stone walls. His jaw tightened slightly. Then he turned and left. He did not report the gathering. Not that night. By morning, whispers traveled again. A guard heard it, people said, but no one was taken. The story spread like quiet fire. Careful, controlled, but alive. More small gatherings began, hidden in basements, behind thick curtains. The jokes were simple, stories about daily life, nothing political. Each laugh remained soft, almost like a secret language, shared only in trust. Children sensed the change first. They felt permission returning slowly, like light through a small crack. In a narrow kitchen, a mother laughed quietly. Her hand covered her mouth. Her child smiled in surprise. The smile stayed longer this time. It did not disappear immediately. It felt natural again. But not everyone approved. Some citizens believed the king was right. They valued strict order above all. To laugh is to forget danger, one merchant said. Danger has not disappeared. His voice carried caution. Reports finally reached the palace. Not clear evidence, just rumors of small sounds. The king read the reports carefully. His fingers paused on the parchment. His eyes narrowed. He ordered more patrols, more watchful guards, more presence in public squares. Armor filled the streets again. Torches burned longer into the night. The city felt tense. The performers sensed the pressure rising. Their meetings became less frequent. Fear returned to their voices. One night, the young friends from the alley were stopped. A guard asked why they were out late. Their answers came quickly. The guard studied their faces. He searched for hidden smiles, for secret joy. Finding nothing, he let them pass. But his suspicion lingered. The city felt watched. Inside the palace, the king grew restless. Sleep escaped him more often. Dreams returned each night. He heard laughter in those dreams. Not mocking, not wild. It sounded warm. It sounded human. It sounded familiar. One evening, he called for his oldest advisor. The man entered slowly. Age had softened his steps. The king asked a quiet question. Is the city weaker than before? The advisor hesitated. Majesty, he said carefully, the city is orderly, but is not lighter. The king frowned slightly. Lighter, he repeated. The word felt foreign. The advisor nodded. People obey, he said, but they do not glow. The king dismissed him without anger. Yet the phrase remained. They do not glow. Outside, tension finally broke. In a crowded market, a fruit seller slipped. Apples rolled across the stones. The scene was harmless, clumsy, unexpected. For 1 second, silence held. Then a child laughed, clear and bright. The sound cut through the square. Heads turned instantly. Time seemed to freeze. The child covered his mouth too late. His eyes widened in fear. His mother stepped forward quickly. A guard approached, boots heavy against stone. The crowd parted. He stood before the child. The boy trembled. The square held its breath. The guard looked down, at the rolling apples, at the frightened face. For a long moment, no one moved. The king's law hovered in the air, heavy and sharp. Then the guard bent slowly. He picked up an apple. He handed it back. Be careful, he said simply. His tone was steady. No punishment followed. The crowd remained silent. But something shifted, something invisible. The story spread faster than any rumor before. A child had laughed, and nothing happened. In homes that evening, people spoke quietly. Perhaps the law is weakening, they said. Hope flickered carefully. But inside the palace, the king heard the same story. His face grew serious. His hands tightened. He summoned the captain of guard. The hall felt cold. Footsteps echoed sharply. Why was the law not enforced? The king asked. His voice remained calm. but tension filled the space. The captain lowered his head slightly. "It was a child, Majesty," he replied. The moment passed. The king stood from his throne. His shadow stretched across the floor. Silence returned to the hall. "If the moment passes once," he said slowly, "it will pass again." His words carried warning. Outside the palace, night settled heavily. Lanterns flickered in windows. Whispers continued. Some citizens felt courage rising. Others feared harsh consequences. The city balanced on uncertainty. And somewhere deep inside the palace, the king faced a truth he could not avoid. The sounding band was returning. The next morning, the palace gates opened early. Messengers hurried in and out. The city sensed something was coming. The king did not sleep that night. Candles burned low beside his desk. Reports lay untouched before him. He walked alone through the long corridor. His footsteps echoed softly. The palace felt larger than usual. He stopped before an old painting. It showed him as a young prince. He was laughing. The memory returned clearly now. A garden in spring, his father beside him. In that memory, the kingdom was not weak. It was not falling apart. It was alive. The king touched the edge of the frame. His hand trembled slightly. He did not pull away. Few people knew the truth. The ban had never been about discipline alone. It had begun with fear. Years ago, during a public festival, a crowd laughed loudly at a traveling performer. The young prince stood nearby. In the noise, he failed to hear a warning shout. A small accident followed. A trusted guard was injured. The prince blamed himself. He blamed the distraction. He blamed the laughter. From that day forward, he connected joy with danger. He believed control meant safety. Now, as king, he finally saw the full picture. The city was safe, but it was also dim. Faces were obedient, not alive. That afternoon, the royal bell rang again. Its sound rolled across rooftops. People stopped in their tracks. Guards gathered in the main square. Citizens formed quiet circles. Eyes lifted toward the palace balcony. The king stepped forward. His robe moved softly in the wind. His face looked calm. He spoke without anger, without blame, without pride. "For months," he said, "I believed silence made us strong." His voice carried clearly. "I feared that laughter weakened discipline." He paused briefly. The square remained still. But I was wrong. The words felt heavy and honest. A soft murmur moved through the crowd. "Strength does not disappear with joy," he continued. "Order does not break because of smiles." His shoulders relaxed slightly. I confused fear with wisdom. The sentence hung in the air, clear and simple. A breeze passed through the square. Cloaks shifted gently. People looked at one another. Today, the king declared, "The ban on laughter is lifted." The words felt almost unreal. For a moment, no one reacted. The habit of silence remained strong. Faces stayed careful. Then, from somewhere near the fountain, a soft chuckle escaped. It sounded uncertain. Another followed, and then another, light and warm. The sound grew slowly, not wild, not chaotic. It spread like sunlight, across stone walls, across careful faces. Children laughed first without fear. Their voices rang clear. Parents did not stop them. Even some guards smiled. Helmets tilted back slightly. Shoulders loosened. The king stood still on the balcony. He listened carefully. He did not turn away. The sound did not feel dangerous. It did not feel weak. It felt alive. Tears formed quietly in his eyes. He did not hide them. No one looked shocked. The city did not fall into chaos. Shops did not close. Order did not disappear. Instead, something invisible returned. A lightness in the air, a softness in movement. The performers brought out their masks again. Painted smiles shone in daylight. Theater doors opened wide. In kitchens and courtyards, stories grew playful once more. Laughter echoed freely. The king later walked through the streets quietly, without guards surrounding him. He listened to the sound. A fruit seller told a simple joke. Customers laughed gently. Apples rolled across the table. The king smiled at the memory. The accident from his youth felt distant. Smaller now, he understood something new. Silence can control a city, but it cannot nourish it. Fear can protect for a moment, but cannot guide forever. It eventually tightens too much. Laughter, he realized, is not a crack in strength. It is proof of shared trust. The kingdom remained disciplined. Soldiers still trained. Laws still stood firm. But now, within that order, there was space for warmth, space for humanity. Years later, travelers would speak of the story. A king who once banned laughter, and then chose to restore it. They would say the city felt balanced, serious when needed, joyful when possible. And the old bell still rings each morning. Its echo moves through lively streets. But now it carries something different. It carries voices that are not afraid. It carries children who laugh freely. It carries a wiser king. Because sometimes, the strongest rulers are not those who silence joy, but those who learn from it. If this story made you reflect, take a quiet moment today. Notice where laughter lives around you. And remember that even small sounds can shape the strength of a world.